Howard Long. Hey, Howard. Howard Long.
Charge.
Drug companies helped make the Kennedys rich, and we paid the price.
Morning, everybody. Morning. Good evening, everybody.
Can you see me?
Wait a minute. I'm working that hard. I think it's still morning.
No, Mrs. Davis, you're not working that hard.
I'm Susan Wiles, and this message.
Lower drug prices and cap insurance premiums.
Doc, can you see me?
I sure can.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Morella. How are you?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Good evening, everybody.
Is that Mr. Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Good evening,
How
Mr.
you
Shaw.
doing tonight, Dr.
I'm doing
Good
well.
evening, Dr. Petit.
Doing well, Mr. Shaw. What about that Winslow Township High School football team?
Yeah, they beat your kids' Seneca Eagles.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey.
They didn't
You
just
talk
beat them;
about-
they whooped up on them.
Are you talking about my Winslow Township High School Eagles soaring
Yeah, they-
above the conference at 2-0?
Yes, sir.
Really?
Gives you bragging rights.
That's right.
At least for now.
Hey, take it as long as you can get it. Hopefully, it's
Yes.
the whole season.
That's
Good
right.
evening.
Good evening.
Mrs. Pitts.
Is
Good
Mr.
evening,
Schultz
everyone. How are you?
losses?
Good evening.
Very good.
Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes, I can hear you,
Okay.
Mrs. Pitts. Mrs. Peterson, how are you tonight?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself?
Oh, living the dream.
Oh,
Hey, Mrs. Peterson? Miss Peterson?
Yes.
How about that
What
Cowboys?
do you have to say? we did squeak by though.
I never cheer for an injury, that's for sure. That was sad. And he's a good guy. He really is.
Devastating.
He's a really good guy. You hate to see that. You really do.
Yes.
He's got quite a story that I didn't know about. Kind of interesting.
Yes, he does.
He's had a rough year.
Yeah, he has.
Absolutely.
Mr. Shaw, I didn't offer any condolences your way, if you noticed, just Miss Peterson. Did I let you do it any better? Doc, how many Toledo Rockets been?
They don't start their season until November.
Really?
Everyone,
Yes.
Dr. Pochig, Cheryl, all board members, everyone.
Hello, Ms. Dredden. How are you?
Miss
Fine.
Stratton, how are you?
Hi, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dredden, can you pass me a mint?
You get it? Wait, here it goes. Here.
Has Ms. Boyle joined us? Dr. Poteet, has Ms. Boyle joined us?
No, she is not on the screen. I haven't seen her.
I just have a question. I just wanted to make sure that the agenda that was included with the addendum is the same agenda that we got earlier, that there's no changes.
The agenda that you received, there is one change, number 25.
There's a change, Dr. Poteet?
Good morning,
Yes.
Madam President.
Oh,
Mrs.
hello, Ms.
Boyle.
Boyle. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I was trying to log on.
Okay, Ms. Boyle, is there a change between the agenda that was delivered with the addendum and the agenda that we got previously?
Yes, number 25 on number 25 on page 12.
Number 25, okay, let's take a look here. Number 25, page 12. Page 12,
Yes,
24,
so,
Only have 24.
24.
No,
Yeah.
25 was deleted.
Oh,
wait a minute.
So it should only go through to 24.
25 was totally deleted?
Correct. So it only goes through section 24.
And section 24 says award vision insurance provider?
Correct, Madam President.
Okay,
Okay, and then the other correction is not reflected on this agenda. So the bill list, I told you we were going to have a correction to the bill list.
right,
So that's on page 6,
page 6, okay.
item 6.
Page 6, let's see, item 6,
Yes, approve,
the bill list, yes.
correct. So approve the bill list in the amount of 4,296,482.98.
Right,
We're going to take off 2 items. PO number 101180.
101180,
Yes, and 101152. Those POs were paid in an incorrect amount, so we just take.
Okay.
And that's going to make that number 4,158,648.99.
okay, give us that again, 4 million,
158,
right,
648.99.
right, okay.
Okay.
All right, so those are the changes.
No,
You
Madam
just brought it
President, you also brought to my attention the exhibits for the transportation
Yes,
agreements. All of those dates have to be corrected to 2021, June 30th, 2021.
okay,
Those were on the exhibits. The corrected dates were submitted to me.
right,
So those documents have all been corrected.
okay, so therefore, when I call for the motion, I don't have to mention that.
No, because we will use the corrected ones. We can say, all right.
Okay,
What's online with the agenda is reflecting what you have with the.
okay,
So-
okay.
So I think maybe we should say something.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening.
Good
evening.
evening. Are you outside or do you have a backdrop?
Backdrop.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Martin. How are you?
Fantastic.
Good evening, Miss Martin.
Speaking of backdrops, I did a little bit of decorating in my downstairs, as you can see. In my office.
No, I can't.
You can't see the background?
No,
Yes.
I don't see you.
Where are you?
I might be on the next.
He's right there, Miss Pitts. You
No.
don't see him?
No, he's not on my screen.
He's
Is
not
he-
on your screen?
I see him now.
He's on my screen.
Okay.
That's Fifth Avenue style right there.
I almost thought I was going to be late. We had a soccer game today, so I'm
Oh,
rushing back.
okay.
Board meeting about
Looking at,
What's the score?
20.
Well, unfortunately, it wasn't a win for us, but we're still striving.
okay,
Okay.
that's a good attitude. I like that attitude. Okay, folks, I have 558. Does anybody else have 558?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I do.
Yes.
Yep.
Where's my agenda?
And so, Miss Boyle,
Yes, Madam President?
you had said that with regards to that agreement with transportation, that I should mention something?
I would just say, what's on the agenda is correct. The exhibits have the wrong, as you brought up, the wrong dates.
Okay,
So those dates have been corrected.
okay, all righty.
Dr. Potee, it's nice to see you.
Mrs. McClendon, I saw you Saturday night.
You did, but it was so briefly. We didn't get a chance to really talk.
Oh, okay, well, good. That means I got at least 2 hours with you tonight.
But it's good to see you on camera. You look very dapper.
Oh my, dapper.
Okay, then I'm gonna have to dress up every board meeting.
All right, then.
I'm encouraged.
Hey.
All right. All right, we're looking at lights, camera, action. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the Winslow Township Board of Education's regular board meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. Public notice of this remote public meeting was given to all board members and associates in a notice dated August 31st, 2020 and October 7th, 2020. It was advertised in the Courier Post, posted in all schools, the administration office, the municipal building, the library, the Bardugga Center, Edward Acres, Elmtown, and the Winslow Township Post Office. Also, please be advised that both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided, specifying the time, place, and manner in which this meeting is being conducted. And this is our mission statement. The mission of the Winslow Township School District, a large, diverse, and growing community, is to educate all students to become independent, lifelong learners, critical thinkers, and caring and competent members of their community. The district, in partnership with the community and in a climate of cooperation and mutual respect, will provide an academic environment which values excellence and diversity, encourages our students to strive for personal excellence, and assist them in acquiring the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to contribute positively to a rapidly changing world. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Present.
Ms. Dredden,
Here.
Ms. Martin,
Present.
Ms. McClendon,
Present.
Ms. Mitchell,
Ms. Mitchell will be absent this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw? Ms. Thomas?
Present.
Ms. Peterson?
Present.
And Ms. Pitts?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. May we just pause and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, excuse me, Mr. Morell, I failed to say good evening to you also.
Thank you. Good
Good
evening.
to have the principal of our high school on board. It's always good.
Well, thank you for having me.
At this time, we're going to have Ms. Martin, Ms. Rita Martin, read our 2020-2021 district goals. Ms. Martin?
Yes, Madam President. 2020-21 district goals. Number 1, student achievement. Continue to implement best practices for delivering instruction to students utilizing all available and appropriate instructional modes. This shall include ensuring articulation at all grade levels throughout the district, focus on classroom instruction at all grade levels, ensuring all students have equal access to equipment and resources needed to facilitate and promote student learning in any setting. D, evaluation and updating all district programs. E, accountability of all district staff. 2, continue to foster positive school environment that is conducive to teaching and learning. A, focus on building relationships among staff that will result in increased learning and more effective instruction. B, promote creative instruction, training, and retraining. C, emphasis on collaboration with all district stakeholders. D, promote cultural competence throughout district. E, teacher to student relationships, and F, student to student relationships. Number 3, market our strengths and achievements to all stakeholders to increase capacity for greater parent, caregiver, community support. A, continue with our public relations marketing plan. B, continue to work with the various advisory committees in the district. And C, examine communication methods utilized by district.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Moving now, board members, to page 2, awards and presentations. Dr. Key?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board and community, we have 2 presentations this evening. We will start with Mr. Davis, Director of Human Resources. He will do his New Jersey HIB school self-assessment presentation. Mr. Davis?
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Boutique.
Whoa.
Tonight, I'm here to share with you the Winslow Township Public Schools self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. The school self-assessment process took place last month, which required each school through its school safety and climate team to complete a self-assessment of its implementation of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Included in your folders, you should have got the usual presentation that I present to you. So during the 2019-2020 school year, all programs and initiatives implemented by the district were to reinforce and strengthen our current HIB policies and practices. At this time, I would like to report and seek approval for the Winslow Township Public Schools self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. And if you look at your folder, I'll break down each of the core elements for you. There are a total of 8. Core element 1 looks at the implementation of HIB programs, approaches, or other initiatives. It has a total point value of 15 possible points that the schools can rate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice the rates goes from a range of 13 to 15 out of 15 possible points.
Right.
Core element 2 looks at our training. The Board of Ed approved HIB policy. It has a total point value of 9. All schools gave themselves 9 out of 9. Core element 3 looks at other staff instruction and training programs. Has a total point value of 15 maximum. And as you notice, our schools range themselves between 14 and 15 out of 15. Core element 4 looks at our curriculum and instruction on HIB and related information and skills. It has a total point value of 6 maximum, and all the schools rated themselves 6 out of 6. Core element 5 looks at HIB personnel, just making sure that's covered, has a total point value of 9. All schools gave themselves 9 out of 9. Core element 6 looks at our school level HIB incident reporting procedure, making sure everything falls within the timelines, et cetera. Has a total point value of 6. All schools rated themselves 6 out of 6. Core element 7 looks at our HIB investigation procedure. It has a total point value of 12 possible points. All schools rated themselves 12 out of 12. And then core element 8 looks at the HIB reporting. Has a total point value of 6, and all schools rated themselves 6 out of 6. So if you go to the last category, it looks at the total school grade, and again, the total possible points you can give yourself is 78. And the scores are as follows: school 1, 77 out of 78. School number 2, 77 out of 78. School number 3, 78 out of 78. School number 4, 77 out of 78. School number 5, 77 out of 78. School number 6, 77 out of 78. Our middle school, 75 out of 78. And the high school, 77 out of 78. So once this information is approved by the Board of Ed tonight, I'll then tomorrow certify, transmit everything to the New Jersey Department of Ed. They'll review, approve, and determine a grade for each of our schools, assign an overall district grade regarding our programs and initiatives. And at that point, I'll come back out, report again like I usually do. And then at that time, it's uploaded to the district and each school's website and posted for the public.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Board members, would there be any questions or comments regarding Mr. Davis's report? Okay, hearing none, at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the report, the New Jersey Department of Education School Self-Assessment for Determining Grades, as presented by Mr. Davis. Is there a motion?
Motion, Blake.
Moved by Mr. Blake. Is there a second? Is there a second? The motion does it. We can't move until like this.
Shaw.
Second by Dredden. Okay, moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Dredden. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw? Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you.
Dr. Potteet, any further presentations?
Yes, Madam President, I'm going to present the 2020 graduation results. You should have a green sheet of paper that was placed in your binders. Does everyone have a copy of the graduation results?
Yes, we do.
Okay, then I will proceed. The New Jersey regulations require districts to report graduation results annually to their district board of education or charter board of trustees at a public meeting no later than September 30th, 2020. However, let me just explain. One, this is the first time, if you can recall, we've ever had to do this. Secondly, we did not receive this information until the day before our September 23rd board meeting. So therefore, it is not permissible for us to just send you the information. It must be done at a public board meeting. So we're doing it, of course, at our first board meeting in October. Since we know that this is going to be a requirement, we will make sure that this information is presented in September as we move forward. I'm going to present it to you as the information was presented to us from the state. Number one, the total number of students graduating in the previous year, which would have been 2020, was the class of 2020. There were 280 graduates. The number of graduates who met the graduation assessment requirements by passing a substitute competency test. Now, the substitute competency test, ladies and gentlemen, is the SATs, the ACTs, or the ASVAB, which is the military interest training exam. For those students who opted not to take the state assessment, if they had a passing score on their SATs or the ACTs, they didn't have to take it. So we have 50 students who passed using the substitute competency test. The next section is the portfolio appeals process, which we had 84. Now, the appeals process is for those seniors who have met all their requirements leading up to graduation, but did not pass either the language arts literacy component of the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, which is the old PARC, or they did not pass the mathematics section. Now, some students may have failed both, some students may have failed one. But what we have been doing in the state of New Jersey over the years, the Winslow Township School District is a member of a consortium which gets together to develop questions and prepare for all of the students who have to take an assessment in the areas where they fell short. So those areas could be reading comprehension, it could be essay writing, it could be literacy skills and language arts literacy, or in mathematics, it could be algebra 1, functions and probability and statistics in mathematics. Each of those individuals have an opportunity to prove themselves by taking those assessments. After they take the assessments, we present it to the state. It is reviewed and graded by the state. And the state make a determination after whether or not the student met the requirements equal to those requirements on the state exam. So we had 84 students who passed through the portfolio appeals process. The last one is meeting the alternative requirements specified in the IEPs. These are for our special education students. These tests are for those youngsters who are our lowest functioning students. And what we do is submit to them information based on their IEPs, and then they will generate a test according to the ability of the student. And those young people, we had 34 of them. Now, keep in mind, these are only our lowest functioning special education students. Our special education students who are not in that category, they have to take the regular tests. All right?
Okay.
All right? So number 3, I'm sorry.
Your question? No, I don't think so, Dr. Poteet.
Okay, let me finish and then I will address any questions you may have. And number 3 on your on the information, the number of 12th grade students who were denied graduation was 14. And they were denied graduation not because of the assessment, it was primarily because of grades. They didn't have enough credits or because of attendance. So it was only 14. Now, if you tabulated the 50, the 84, and the 34, that does not come out to 280. There were, at the bottom, I added, there was 112 graduates who met the graduation assessment requirements, which means they've earned all their credits for graduation. and they passed both the language arts and literacy and the mathematics component of the state exam. So that gives you a total of 280. The 14 students who failed were also members of that class, so we would have a total of 294 students in the graduating class. 14 of them did not meet the requirements for graduation, and the others were promoted according to the data that you have in front of you. Are there any questions?
Board
Thank you
members,
very much.
no questions? Thank you, Dr. Potteet. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Board members, moving now to correspondence.
Madam,
Boyle?
Madam President, there was no correspondence for this period.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyle. Board members, if I hesitate, it's only because I know that in speaking with this remote technology that there is a delay. And sometimes that's why I don't want to go ahead and speak too quickly. At this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the following minutes of the Board of Education's regular meeting that was held on September 23rd, 2020, open session. Is there a motion?
Blake, motion.
Is there a second?
Second, Martin.
Second, Martin? It's been moved by Mr. Blake and second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions on our minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
The motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle.
Oh, Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Yes,
I
Mr.
would like to resend my yes to it, abstain.
Ms. Boyle, did we get that? That's right, because Mr. Blake was not in attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. It's noted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Moving now to our board committee reports. Would there be a report out of our education committee?
No report, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Would there be a report out of our operations committee?
No, not at this time, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Dredden. Would there be a report out of our marketing committee?
Not at this time, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Would there be a report also out of our athletic committee? Thank you, Mr. Shaw. With regards to our policy committee, members, please be advised that our policy committee will be meeting at the last week in this month on Thursday, October 29th. Please mark your calendars. I would have scheduled it for next week. However, as we all know, next week is our state conference. And so we are expected for at least those 3 days to be attending certain workshops. So that's why members of the policy committee, I moved our policy committee meeting to Thursday, October 29th, 4 p.m. If that is not, does not fit in anyone's schedules, policy committee members, please let me know. Also, I believe at this time, Mr. Blake is going to give us a report out of our Equity Equality Committee, which was actually formed during our retreat. So, Mr. Blake.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Blake.
Winslow Township School Board Justice Equality Committee met on Monday, August 10th at 6 p.m. In attendance is myself, Larry Blake, Julie Peterson, John Shaw, and Kelly Thomas. The committee was formed at our last board retreat, and the purpose of this committee is to successfully educate all the students who attend our schools, all the children in our community, and implement improvement to address racial disparities in our schools. We do have a few ideas that the committee has come up with, a few workshops, but we will flush that out a little bit later on this month in November. And we would like to start hopefully at the beginning of the year in 2021, either by Zoom or in person.
Great. Great. Does that conclude your report, Mr.
That
Blake?
concludes my report.
Thank you. Board members, would there be any questions or comments with regards to Mr. Blake's report? Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Mr. Blake. That was a great report. Board members, at this time, I'm still on page 2. I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent's report that begins on page 2 and continues through to the bottom of page 5. Is there a motion?
Motion, Blake.
Is there a second?
Second, Martin.
Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Stratton,
Yes, yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Ms. Peterson? Did we lose Ms. Peterson? Ms. Peterson? Okay, Ms.
Madam President, I do see something on her screen. It looks like a little triangle. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I see that too.
Her internet connection, I have a gentleman from technology.
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
Ms. Peterson, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay. I've asked for a motion to approve the superintendent's report. Waiting for your vote. Uh-oh, did we lose her again?
I believe we may have the triangles back.
Yeah.
Ms. Peterson, it's trying to reconnect.
Okay.
I'm already on. I can hear.
Okay.
So we're asking for approval for the superintendent section, Ms. Peterson, and it's your turn to vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Pitts,
Yes.
motion has carried.
Thank you. Moving now, board members, I am at the top of page 6. I'm asking for a motion to approve the Business Administrator Board Secretary's report. However, before I call for the motion, I call your attention to page 6, number 6, the bill list. We are removing purchase order 101180 and purchase order 101152, which brings the amount of our bill list. It changes the amount that's listed from $4,296,482.98 to the newer amount of $4,158,648.99. That's one of the changes that has been made on the Business Administrator Board Secretary's report. And here again, the agreements for transportation as they appear on our agenda are correct. So therefore, I'm asking for a motion to approve with corrections the Business Administrator Board Secretary's report. Begins at the top of page 6. It continues through to the bottom of page 12 with the elimination of number 25. Board members, are we clear, or do you need for me to repeat that? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Motion, Madam President.
Did you do questions, Madam President, on that?
No.
No, I did not do questions. Are there questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
My question was just regarding the transportation agreement. I'm not sure if that was already dealt with, but my questions are, with the joint transportation, being as though we don't have students being dropped off to the schools, how is that, I guess, how is that valid? So I just want if it can be clarified as far as these transportation agreements with other counties or other districts.
We may not be in school, but the other school districts may have students who are attending those schools. So, and even if it's not now, even in January, these agreements are usually done, even if it's just one student who's taken up a seat on one of the buses, we go ahead and make those agreements because the student is either in Winslow Township and we're busing them there, or they're in that district and they bus them to Winslow. But in most cases, these youngsters have a seat on one of our buses.
Right. Okay. So reading the agreement, it says that the student is being transported to one of our Winslow schools. Is that correct, or should it be switched?
No, it is correct. It is correct. But until we open, we don't wait until January. We go ahead and make these agreements in advance. So once we do go back to face-to-face, the agreements are already in place.
Okay. So the dollar amount per diem we still receive, or is it prorated later on, or how does that work?
It would be prorated. I'm sorry, Mrs. Boyle.
Yes, the charges, we're going to charge the other district because it's a child that is responsible at another district, but they're here. And when we start transporting, that would be the per diem rate for that seat. So right now, if they're not being transported, we're not billing them.
We're not billing them, right.
We're letting the districts know what the cost will be for that agreement.
Okay. So each of these agreements currently right now, we're not billing those districts, but this is just the paperwork that was just put in just to show the transportation agreement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Poteet, Ms. Boyle, now this is pretty much standard. This is not anything that's new, correct?
No, it's not.
Okay. All right. Just for further clarification. So therefore, again, any further questions or comments on the board secretary VA's report? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Madam President, who made the motion?
The motion was made by Mr. Blake and second by Ms. Martin. Not?
We didn't do that.
We
That
didn't
was
do
on
the
the last
motion?
one.
We didn't move
I'm
that
looking at
motion?
Mr. Blake.
Go ahead, Mr. Blake.
Okay.
Motion Blake.
Second Martin.
Okay, here we go. Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. So I will repeat. Any further comments or questions? Thank you. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. Moving now, board members, page 13. I am at this time asking for a motion to approve the personnel report that begins at the top of page 13 and continues through to the top of page 15. Is there a motion?
Blake motion.
Second Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw, Ms. Thomas,
Ms. Thomas?
It looked like she was going on and off for a second there, Mrs. Pitts.
I believe, yes. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Ms. Peterson
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, Ms. Bull. Before we go any further, I would just beg the indulgence of the public because it appears that we're not as clear with our technology transmission as we usually are. So again, any apologies for any inconvenience or difficulty that the public may have in hearing us. Moving now, board members, to our addendum, and I believe that we all received our addendum. And at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent's report as it appears on our addendum on page 1. Begins and ends with number 1. Is there a motion?
Motion, Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Would there be further comments or questions?
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Boyle.
it looks like there's 2 items on the superintendent section. The second would be a field trip?
Yes,
Okay. Just,
but I'm asking for a motion for both items.
thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw, Ms. Thomas,
Ms. Thomas?
Looks like we lost her.
Looks like we lost Ms. Thomas.
Ms. Peterson. If Ms. Thomas comes back
Yes.
on, I'll catch her.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Thomas,
No, I don't see her. I think we've lost her.
I see her at the bottom.
Yes.
Okay, there she is.
So Ms. Thomas, did you vote
I'm sorry.
for the superintendent section on the addendum?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Buller. We are still on the addendum. At this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the Business Administrative Board Secretary's report that begins at the middle of page 1 on our addendum and continues through to page 2. Is there a motion?
Motion, Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Would there be further questions or comments? Thank you. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw, Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Bull. Turning board members to our agenda, we're at the Open Public Records Act. Ms. Boyle?
Yes, Madam President, we did receive completed 2 requests between September 18th and October 9th. One was received by Mr. Adam Sheridan, the co-chair of the Winslow Township Education Association Health and Safety Committee. He requested several items, all purchase order requests for HVA service from 1819 school year and September 2019 through February 2020 time period. Those records were supplied. As-built drawings for all HVAC systems district-wide. That was denied due to security. HVA system commissioning report currently does not exist, but we are working on it. HVAC preventive maintenance schedule district-wide, that was provided. HVAC certification of an engineer responsible for the HVAC system, that currently does not exist, but we are working. We have a vendor in here working on it. and any purchase orders for HVAC filters for the past 2 school years, 18-19, 19-22, to present, and listing the MERV specification of the filters that was supplied. The second request came from Mr. Jeffrey Butler of educatorinfo.com, and he wanted access and a copy of the listing of all Winslow Township School District full-time employees. He wanted their first, middle, and last names, their title, position, email address, date of hire, and building and or office location. That record was supplied and presented to the vendor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyle. Moving on, board members, I am at the top of page 16. Would there be any old business to discuss at this time?
Yes, Madam President, Dr. Potteet. At our last school board board meeting, if you recall, you asked Mr. Morella to reach out to the parents of the senior students about a class field trip to Florida.
Yes.
The following day, I had a conversation with Mr. Morella and Dr. Carcamo. I asked Mr. Morella to and conduct a survey with those parents to see what type of feedback we would get. I asked Mr. Morella to join us tonight to give us the details and specifics and answer any questions you may have. Mr. Morella?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Petit. Yes, we did a school messenger global connect to the senior class that went out to 276 households, and it was received by 247 households. In that message, we described that we were going to put a interest survey in the Google Classroom. Every senior student has a English class, so we placed that survey in the English Google Classroom, and in the Global Connect call, we informed the parents that it would be there and for them to review it with their students and to list their interest in going to the trip. As I stated in the interest survey, we did point out, because the reason at the last board meeting we were doing this was because of the health and safety concerns to COVID-19. So we did preface the survey with that information. We listed the costs, and then we simply issued one question to the families, and it was with the information that we had presented in the survey, would they be interested in participating in such a trip? That message went out on September 30th, at which time we sent the survey. The survey actually remained open up until yesterday. Of that survey, we had 96 responses. 96 families responded. 74 families said that they would like to participate in the trip, while 22 families said that they would not be willing to participate. So that is all the information regarding the senior trip and the survey that was presented.
Mr. Morella, would you also share?
Yes.
Would you also share with the staff about the staff and their interests?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Potteet. So we have 6 teachers that have confirmed that they would be willing to attend the trip. And we also have 1 administrator, as we normally do, that confirmed that they would be willing to go on the trip. And that completes all the data and information that we received as of yet.
Thank you, Mr. Morella. So, Dr. Potteet, at this point, at this juncture, I do recall from the last meeting that there were deadlines by which the district had to report back to the travel agent.
Yes.
And so, therefore, at this point, what would we be reporting? Do you feel that that's sufficient enough students?
Sure. If we have 69 students who want to participate, then yes, that is enough students to move forward with the trip if the board approves.
Okay.
Madam President, I have some questions for Mr. Morella.
Okay.
So I guess, Mr. Morella.
Yes.
So you're saying that the survey went out on Google. So do we know if parents responded or we know if students responded? And the reason why I'm asking is because a few parents had asked me when the poll was coming out, and a lot of them said that they were not, they didn't know where the poll was. So if we put it in, I guess, Google Classroom, I guess my first question is, why did we use that tool if it wasn't going directly to the parents? And how do we know that parents responded and it wasn't the students?
Well, they're all great questions. So we did the Global Connect so that we could reach the parents. So that's one way to ensure that the parents get the message. And then we put it into the Google Classroom because that's one way we can ensure that every senior and only seniors are the ones that would have the ability to respond with their families. So that was the idea there, so that we made sure we could reach every single one of the seniors as well as their families. And the Global Connect, it described to the parents, and again, there was 247 either actual people that answered the phone or that received a voice message. So we're hoping that the parents did understand the description in the Global Connect and that they did do it with their students.
Right. And see, that's my only concern, is because the students had access to it, and if they didn't share it with their parents, or if the parents didn't get the robocall, then those responses came from students and not the financial persons that are going to be responsible and liable for the payment. So that was my only concern, is that it went through to the students and not something directly to the parents to get their responses on it, so that at least we have a correct and accurate number to base it off of when we decide whether or not to proceed with the contract. So that was the only thing that's confusing to me, or that that I'm concerned about, is that we probably didn't get answers from parents. We probably got them from the students. So I don't know if there was something that the parents had to sign off on, or if it was just a simple yes or no. But if it went to the students, the parents may not have even seen it.
Well, that is all possible. We're hoping that the parents did receive the messages and that they did understand that it was supposed to be done with the student. But what this does present is a level of interest from our student body. And by entering into a contract that puts the high school or the district under no obligation, it just means that if we enter into a contract, that if students do wish to go, then they would be responsible for the financial obligation, as you pointed out.
Right.
Yep.
But students don't make that decision. It would be the parents that make it. So that
No, so that's seven. Yes, excuse me. Yes, so that 74 could be less. It could be more. But again, that's how the contract would be in place. It would not make the school responsible. Only the students that actually do sign on, if the board decides to approve it or not.
Thank you.
Yes,
Board members, any other comments or questions?
I have a question, Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Morello, I understand you used the Global Connect to reach out to the parents first. Was there any thought about mailing out a hard copy letter as well to ensure that you actually got responses from the parents when you used the Google Classroom to use the survey?
No, we did not discuss sending a letter out because of the time sensitivity, but I'm assuming it would have reached them. I just don't know what we would have gotten back.
Mr. Morello, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I understand that you've taken the survey, and based upon the survey, it looks like we're leaning towards recommending that we go ahead. So just because someone wasn't surveyed doesn't preclude them the opportunity, or didn't respond, doesn't preclude them the opportunity between now and October 30th, when looking at the contract that Dr. Carcamo sent me, the first payment, a very small initial deposit, is due, that those individuals couldn't indicate that they have a desire to attend. So once it's on, I'm assuming that you could do another informational piece that it's on, and you might pick up another 30, 40 people. Would that be an accurate statement?
That's exactly correct. That is correct. Right. So this information will go out. If it's board approved, it will go out to all the students. I have the letters here with me. There's a 6-page letter that will go home to the families that will describe the trip, the financial obligation, as well as the safety concerns. And then if they wish to join and sign on at that time, they can. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Morello. Board members, before I'm asking for a motion, would there be any further questions or comments?
I do have a question. Sorry to interrupt. This is more so for Dr. Poteet. I know I missed the last meeting, so it may have been discussed at the last meeting, but is this going to affect other schools? So say like school 6 wants to take a field trip to another place. Because of the seniors going on a field trip, will other schools and other grade levels be able to participate in field trips?
No.
Okay.
No. And the reason is, Mr. Blake, we know that seniors have certain privileges. Getting to the 12th grade is almost like an honor system. You're ready to graduate, you've been through the school system, and we have done this trip for a number of years. And no, this is the only exception this year for a trip would be the seniors. And that's why I asked Mr. Morello to bring it before the board, because we wanted to make sure we had your approval.
Mr. Long?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you were going to address the contract with the board, if there was anything that was found, like any red flags or anything that we need to be concerned about.
Yes, absolutely. So there's an initial deposit of $500 that's due October 30th, a second deposit of $500 that's due December 4th, and then the balance is due, and I'm just looking for the amount. It depends. It could be anywhere from the single occupancy is a high of $2,216 to a low of a quad occupancy, $1,592. There's there's penalties that I see in the contract that was highlighted for me, sent by Dr. Carcamo on October 14th. I'm sorry, on it was in September, right after our last meeting. She got it from Mr. Morella. There's also penalties upon a $50 penalty if you cancel between the first and second deposit. Then it becomes more significant, a $350 penalty if you cancel between the after the second deposit has been paid. And then so there seems to be some, and if you book it and you pay the full amount, there's even more significant penalties that can be imposed. Paragraph 7C of the agreement indicates that trip insurance be highly recommended at an additional fee. It would be my recommendation that we do not make that voluntary. I think given the circumstances, I think we need to make that mandatory. Because I know folks are going to come, if it gets canceled, if the pandemic numbers increase, if Florida closes, if a lot of million things that I can't sit here and guess what's going to happen between April 14th and April 19th, 2021, where it's, when the flight occurs and when the trip occurs. I would strongly suggest that we identify the cost of the trip insurance, because I didn't see it in the agreement, and that every child be mandated to take that, because I can't promise you, based upon the language, that I can get us our money back. But if we have trip insurance, which I think, if you don't do it in this environment, I think that's that would be very unfortunate. So my sense is they should be required to take it, and then we'll save a lot of aggravation in the event it gets canceled, say in late March, due to, who knows where you can travel then. I can't predict that future.
Exactly. It's such an unpredictable situation, and certainly as the board, we would want to make our decisions and our votes in the best interest of our students. So board members, if you recall, at our last meeting, we did get all of this information. So we've had an opportunity to read through it. And so at this time, I'm asking board members, would there be further questions or comments before I ask for a motion on this topic?
Question, comment.
Ms. McClinton?
All right. So after listening to Mr. Long, with the penalties that we, stand to face. For me, and if the board agrees to this, because we are not sure if the parents responded back to the survey. And Mr. Morella, I know you mentioned at the last meeting that we could put an extension in if we did it by October 20th. Me personally, and hopefully the board will see it this way as well, I would like for us to send a poll or survey out to the parents directly so that we know, because as Mr. Long just stated, there are penalties along the way. And I know no one wants to be out of money, not putting out $500 deposits. And if we are able to make an extension before the 20th, to at least give us that time frame to be 100% sure that the survey was answered by parents and not by students, I think I would like for us to consider going that route. If the extension doesn't hurt us by any chance, if we can do that before the 20th and still get the allotted time to at least address the parents directly and not send it through Google Classroom, because like I said, we're not even sure if the parents were the ones that okayed it. It could have been the students. So I'd rather us be safe than sorry. And if we have that open window to do so, if we could. And that would just be my recommendation to the board, us to consider that.
Well, Ms. McClendon, with regards to that open window, that window is not as open as we would think, because as you stated, we do have a deadline of October 20th. Today is the 14th. And if we're going to go forward and do another survey or even mail, we have to consider turnaround time. So let's take a minute and just look at that. If indeed,
I thought Mr. Morella said that they would give us an extension beyond the 30th, but we had to let them know by the 20th of this month. Mr. Morella, can you share that with us?
Clear that up for us?
Sure, I would be happy to. So yes, if we were to ask for an extension, then in essence, we would be in agreement. So we would be signing the contract and asking for an extension for the first payment until the month of December.
Okay.
Okay, so if we ask for an extension, then we're saying yes.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah. I didn't know that was regarding the money. I thought that was an extension on signing the contract, so.
Right, so if we sign the contract and no one decides to go, then no one's under any obligation. If we sign the contract and one student decides to go and they default on a payment, then they would incur the penalty that Mr. Long was talking about. It would be for that one student. And that has been routine language in all the contracts, unfortunately.
So
I can't emphasize enough the need to mandate, to avoid. I know it's coming. We've been down this road twice as a district in the time that I've been here with a prom and with a trip, and the not taking the trip cancellation insurance, which I think was, Mr. Morella, help me, $83 or something. Do I recall?
Yes, it was a minimal amount. It had a blanket cost of 100 and something if they did it individually. If we did it all as a group, it was less. It was less than 100. Yes, to answer your question, somewhere.
So, you don't like to dictate it, but in these circumstances, I would approve it conditioned upon and automatically including a trip cancellation payment, so that we can get the, we can present it as a group, get the lower premium for the insurance policy that covers, and you look at that policy, it'll probably say, a week before you're canceling, you're protected.
72 hours.
Great. I mean, you just cannot proceed without that. Would be the only thing I would really emphasize. I would strongly encourage, because people are going to look to you if it gets canceled. You approved it. We paid all this money, $2,000, and now we've lost 2/3 of it.
So that makes strong fiscal sense. It puts a safety net there. So I would, if indeed the board is going to vote in favor, I would certainly make that cancellation fee a mandate.
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Peterson.
I would like to, I like both Mr. Long and Ms. McClendon. I think we need to make certain that parents are aware that their students' interests and if they can financially afford this trip. So I think given the situation in the state of New Jersey, in terms of job loss, I would want to make certain that we have both opportunity. If there's 74 students that have confirmed the interest in going, I don't know how difficult it would be to outreach to those parents to make certain that they are aware of it. Or if put upon the students, go back into the Google Classroom, and those students that actually target to make sure that they had some kind of statement that they sent in to Mr. Morello that their parents are fully aware and support the trip.
Mr. Morello, is
And
everybody
yeah,
getting
but
the
don't,
package, or is just the people who's indicated an interest getting the package for signups?
I'm sorry, Mr. Long, could you repeat that?
Sure. Is the entire senior class getting the package that you said you have in front of you in the envelopes, the 5 or 6 page explanatory? We're going to do this trip. If you're interested, the deadline is X. Is that going to everyone in the senior class or only those that have expressed interest?
It would go to everyone, and it would require parental signatures and permissions. And
So you have essentially the concern about what if a child doesn't know about it or a parent doesn't know about it. You're about to correct that once the board votes
Yes.
by doing a direct mailing to the parent, correct?
correct.
and Mr. Long, we always require a parent permission slip and signature. So that would be another safeguard that we have in place.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Morella, if we agree to the contract today, and the forms go out, or as Ms. Peterson and I both agree that we need to definitely make sure parents are the ones okaying this, just because of financial obligation. And now, because our attorney has said that we need to make the insurance, which is another additional fee, make it mandatory and not as a voluntary. If we approve this tonight, but then we get the feedback from parents and our number goes from 74 down Plymouth lower because now parents are the ones signing and okay it. If we cancel out, are we losing anything or is this a cancellation? Like, how does that work? I don't know if you can answer or Mr. Long.
There's no penalty until the first payment is made.
Okay, which would be October 30th.
Yeah, we're in good shape. You agree, Mr. Morella?
Yes.
So how soon can we get the turnaround to find out how many parents, the confirmation?
What would be the furthest you could push this out, Mr. Morella, in terms of the first payment being due?
We'll reach back, if it does get board approved, tomorrow we'll reach back out to the travel agency, and they said they would extend the first payment into the month of December. I do not recall the exact date. I have December 5th on my mind, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But it was in December.
But even if you sign the contract with board approval tonight and you send those packages out and 20 come back and they decide to cancel, until those 20 people make their first payment 6 weeks from now, there's no penalty on the district or any of the individual seniors or their parents that wish to go. You agree with that?
I do. It's once the money is submitted to the travel agency and they have indicated that they're going to go on the trip, then that's when anything could occur after that point. Yes.
Excellent. So that you have basically, they have anywhere between a month and perhaps 5 weeks to get it together, get an individual mailing and decide, yes, we can afford to do this. We want to do this. We do not want to do this.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Thank you, Mr. Morella. Board members, any further questions, comments, or concerns? Mr. Long?
Yes, ma'am.
Because certainly this particular motion, resolution certainly has legal ramifications. I am going to ask you to frame the motion for us so that I can call for the motion.
Yes, it would be a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with World Class Vacations for the senior trip commencing April 14th, 2021 through April 19th, 2021 for the prices set forth therein. And it's conditioned upon, in accordance with paragraph 7C of that agreement, where it says trip insurance is highly recommended at an additional fee, that the ability of an individual to book is conditioned upon payment of that trip insurance amount.
Thank you, Mr. Long. That's a bit lengthy, but I believe our discussion should have answered any questions for us. So therefore, that, Mr. Long, that resolution, I'm asking for a motion to approve the resolution as stated by Mr. Long. Is there a motion?
Motion, Blake.
Motion by Mr. Blake.
Second by Martin.
Second by Ms. Martin. And for the last time, any further questions or comments on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes, with reservations.
It's still a yes. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
For the first time, I'm almost in agreement with Ms. McClendon, but I'll say yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes, and thank you, board members. Certainly, because I know the concern, as always, is would be for our students. So continuing, would there be any other old business to discuss at this time?
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Long.
I just wanted to advise the board that there was some guidance issued by the state of New Jersey relative to public entity meetings such as our meeting. It's still strongly encouraging, and I say this in view of some of the troubles we had a little earlier. When you consider the big picture, they're not really troubles. We're getting through our meetings, we're conducting our business, but the state has provided some definitive guidelines for how our meetings have been conducted. We've been in constant touch with Mrs. Boyle on these issues, and frankly, it's suggesting that we maintain this format for the foreseeable future, given the risk that are involved in doing the in-person meetings. It's basically a very strong encouragement. If we were to meet together and, for example, there was an inability to social distance, we exceeded the capacity of the room, people weren't wearing masks from the time they enter the premises to the time they leave, the penalty can be as severe as any action taken at the meeting being overturned. We video our meetings, we when we're in person. So it's something that the state within the last week and a half has reemphasized regarding the conduct of virtual meetings and the type of notices that Mrs. Boyle has routinely had to put out to make sure that we're doing this legal, and we are, and we're working closely together. I just wanted to bring everybody up to date that there's really no foreseeable end in sight for us to do this. And I think that's the message of the state. Do this in this fashion. I think that's the message that the state was trying to give us. And without going into closed session, I just want to add very briefly and very generally that I've been in some discussions directly with Dr. Carcamo, in particular, and Ms. Boyle and Mr. Davis. The WTEA tomorrow is taking a vote to determine whether or not we're going to be in a position maybe to resolve the outstanding collective bargaining agreement negotiations that have been ongoing for the past year. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that we might get that resolved. I think that might be good for all parties. If it does, I'll provide a greater detail in confidential correspondence directly to each board member and the administration. That was
Thank
it,
you.
Mr. Fitz.
Thank you, Mr. Long. So the short version is that as of new instructions that came out, I believe in the letter dated September 26th to all districts, that the state is indeed recommending that we continue our board meetings remotely.
Yes, ma'am. Are you suggesting lawyers talk a lot, Mrs. Pitts?
Yeah, no, no, for clarification purposes only. For clarification purposes only. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Any other old business to discuss at this time? Thank you, board members. Hearing none, we can move on now to new business. Would there be, board members, any new business that you would care to discuss at this time? Thank you. Hearing none, moving now to informational items. Would there be any informational items that we would care to discuss at this time?
Yes, Madam President, as a matter of fact, we have received a list of questions from the Citizens Advisory Council. I am going to assume that all the board members may have these questions in their possession. Am I correct?
That is correct, Dr. Poteet.
Okay, as we have done in the past, we have extended, of course, the professional courtesy to the Citizens Advisory Council, as well as to thank them for their time and effort to respond to the questions that they have submitted to the board. There were a total of 13 questions. Several of them were directed specifically for the board, so I will only address those questions that I believe fall under the purview of the administration. The first question, I will read the question and then respond. The first question was, given the new and evolving situation that is virtual learning, we discussed how administrators can utilize robocalls and technology to give updates. They can fill the void of what normally would be morning announcements, any updates on how the school year is progressing, also as gentle reminders regarding virtual etiquette and morale booster for parents during these challenging times. I think at this point, it's always good for our administrators to stay in touch with our parents. I will highly recommend that they continue to use the email process as much as possible. The robocalls, I would tend to say no, because after a while, you know, the robocalls have always been used for emergencies and to share important information. Example, of course, when Mr. Morella reached out to the parents on this issue with the senior trip, of course, I used the robocall to remind parents that there was no school on Columbus Day. After a while, and of course, there are some parents who have blocked out calls.
That's not a good thing.
That's not funny, but
for administrators to do robocalls every week, I think you lose the impact and the substance of what robocalls are for, and I think it would be a little much. In addition to the robocalls that I would normally make, after a while, the parents, oh, it's just the school district. So at this point, my recommendation is that the building principals to continue to communicate with the parents as much as possible with relevant information. And we do not recommend that they use the robocalls for that purpose. Number two, can we revisit the kindergarten aid question to the Education Committee to prepare for a January reopening? Well, I look at that as a question for the administration prior to going to the Education Committee for two reasons. One, in January, we are hoping to reopen our schools, but it will still be in a hybrid model because we can't do full face-to-face because there's still safety protocols that we have to follow. And under those safety protocols, we limit the number of students per classroom. And at this point, our average class size will be 9 to 11 students. So at this point, with a teacher with 9, possibly 11 students, there really wouldn't be a need for an aide. So at this point, that would not be my recommendation that we have aides in those kindergarten classrooms because of the very small class sizes based on our safety protocols. Number 3, given how some students may be struggling, we discussed the possibility of district-wide assessments upon return to the physical classroom and perhaps adding basic skills teachers to help with the achievement gap. Well, I want everyone to keep in mind that in as much as we are remote instruction, we're still in school district. We're still conducting business as we always have. We have assessments in place and benchmarks, and our teachers and administrators know exactly when a child needs to be assessed, and we do that on a regular basis. So that's not something new for us, and I don't see that as an issue at this point. No, board members, I will not be recommending basic skills teachers at this point because I do not believe that is something that we need to move forward with, particularly even considering the expense of it. But at this point, I think we are in pretty good shape with where we are. Number 4, in the same vein, we discussed the possibility upon assessing children, classes may need to be shuffled to best accommodate children who have returned at different skill levels. Well, in a regular educational situation, we have different skill levels in every classroom every year. So that's not new to us. So we will not be shuffling classes based on what we've already put in place. So when we return in January, the schedules, the classes that we already have in place, there will be no need for us to make any changes because there are various skill levels in every classroom, and it will continue to be that way as long as schools are available in our communities. Number 5, Chromebook question. Some students have been placed on a wait list for Chromebooks and hotspots. How many did we give out? Are we waiting on back-ordered technology? Well, we surveyed our building principals again, and we do not presently have anyone on a waiting list for a Chromebook or a hotspot. We do have some parents from time to time who may bring in a Chromebook because it's not working. Instead of giving them an old Chromebook that we may have, we may ask them to wait a day or two so that we can maybe ask another school if they have newer Chromebooks so that we can get them a new book. As far as hotspots are concerned, everyone who requested one have received them, but we have run into a situation where we know the children are online with their classes and parents are asking for an additional hotspot. But at this point, everyone who requested one, who needed one, had them. The numbers that I have at this point, we've given away 3,230 Chromebooks, and we've given out 286 hotspots.
Excuse me, Dr. Poteet, could you just repeat those figures again, please?
I sure will. We have given out 3,230 Chromebooks. We have given 286 hotspots.
Thank you, Dr. Poteet.
All right.
Okay.
Number 6, can we have an update on the HVAC assessments and the timelines? Yes. This is where we are. CM3, the company that's doing our assessment, has been in the district since September 26. They will continue working in our buildings. They've already started at the high school first because that is our largest building. They've done some work at the middle school in the gymnasiums because of those high elevation areas where we had to use a lift. But this is the process that they're going to use. One team will start at the high school, will move to the middle school, then do school 6 and school 5. Another team which started this week, will start at school number 1, will move to school number 2, school number 3, and then school number 4. We had a meeting this morning, and if we seem like we're running into a timeline that we will not be able to meet, there's a possibility of them bringing on additional teams to help with the assessment. But at this point, that's if and only if. But that's where we are at this point. And our timeline is still basically the same as it was in the beginning. We're looking at this assessment or recommission being completed the end of November and at the latest early December. Number 7, if buildings are deemed safe, can we reopen in phases? My recommendation, this question came to us earlier before. My recommendation is that we open all at once. However, but I do not want you to hold me to this. We will look at special education, those students who are of the greatest need, and those youngsters who are receiving multiple services. There's a possibility that we can look at maybe getting those youngsters in first. But Madam President, members of the board, I don't want you to hold me to that because that will be based strictly on the outcome of those assessments. All right. Again, I'm always going to err on the side of safety. And if I'm not certain that those buildings are ready for the children and staff to go in, I will not make that recommendation. But special education will be my first recommendation, or excuse me, consideration. What is the current enrollment in each building? The enrollment in each building is as follows. At the high school, we have 1,175 students. At the middle school, we have 764 students. At school 6, we have 508 students. At school 5, we have 596 students. At school 4, we have 445 students. At school 3, 469 students. At school 2, 307 students. And school 1, 329 students, for a total of 4,593. Now, keep in mind, members of the board and community, these numbers fluctuate from year to year. For example, school 5 may have more students than school 6 one year, and then the following year, school 6 will have more than school 5. As you know, school 4 has always, like last year, had close to 500. Now, school 3 has more students than school 4, and it fluctuates back and forth from year to year, but those are our totals as we speak. Number 9 is a board question, so I will go directly to number 10. Each school has a pandemic response team. How were these individuals selected? How often are they meeting? What recommendations have come out of these committees? Well, the pandemic response teams, ladies and gentlemen, were selected by the building principals. They have had some virtual meetings. The recommendations are according to each building, and at this point, it'll be too many for me to read the recommendations from each school. But keep in mind that the pandemic response team was developed to address COVID-19 issues in the buildings. And since all the buildings are closed at this point, those recommendations have not been implemented. However, we have moved forward with those things we know needed to be in place, like making sure that the classrooms desks are 6 feet apart, that there are hand sanitizers in every classroom, the flow of traffic. All those safety issues have been addressed already in our buildings, and those are the things the pandemic response teams would be responsible for. Number 11, discussion regarding adopting a virtual learning policy, i.e. current issues with wearing of hats and hoodies, students in bedrooms, pausing of cameras, not being on camera, etc. Well, let me say this to you. Of course, it's up to the policy committee, but it's not my recommendation that the policy committee start developing rules and regulations for issues that I see should be standard operational procedure. Madam President, we, as I stated in our last board meeting, we're still a school district. And it is my expectation as we sent out the early letter in the beginning of the year, we put information on our website for helpful hints that the students should be conducting themselves the same way they would if they were in regular school. The parents should make sure that the young people are going to bed every night at a reasonable time. They get up, have their breakfast, they get dressed and present themselves to their teachers, and that they are present when there's roll call, there's participation. This is a new school year, so there are new students in these classrooms, so the teachers need to see who they are. So at this point, it is my recommendation that we continue to hold our young people accountable. We're asking our parents to work with us again and making sure that our young people get up and prepare themselves for school. And there's no need every time we have an issue, we want to rewrite a policy. I'm saying at this point, these are standard operational procedures. We have guidelines in place, and I would expect the young people to abide by those guidelines, and we ask the parents to support us with those guidelines. Number 12 was a board question. Number 13, the CAC also began talking about parental outreach in regards to struggling students and families. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that question and what role they wanted the school district dealing with students who are struggling and families. We are always ready to support our families, but I'm not sure exactly what they meant by that question and what role we have. So maybe someone would ask us that. They
Well,
also,
Dr. Poteet, excuse me, Dr. Poteet, when I read that question, I was wondering specifically, were they speaking academically or financially or social emotionally? I'm not sure exactly.
and that's my point. That's my point, Madam President. I mean, if it's an academic situation, of course, we of course will deal with it as best we can. The only thing we continue to ask the parents if they're in need of anything to, reach out, because we'll never know if they have a need if they don't say something to us. Social, emotional, we are prepared to address those issues. We do have support staff in place. We are already dealing with a lot of those issues right now as I speak. So many of those things are in place. So at this point, until we receive some additional clarification, I'm not exactly sure. So I would be remiss in trying to respond to it without really knowing exactly what the question was referring to. They have 3 recommendations, 2 administratively, 1 for the board. The first one is they're recommending that the district look into acquiring supplemental tutoring services to try to close the achievement gap. They recommend a virtual tutoring service, an outside agency for students K-12. Here is what I do know. We built each teacher's schedule with time at the end of the day for them to work with students who may have additional issues or need additional help. Until I am certain that our young people are using those services that we presently have in place, then there's really not a need for us to look outside of the school district. So at this point, I want to reiterate that there's time at the end of each teacher's schedule where they have an hour or so to work with those young people who need or request additional assistance or services. And I'm saying, please maximize those services at this time so that we can, meet those needs. I would not be recommending that we have an outside agency providing tutoring services. Just off the top of my head, because I've had individuals submit information, that's an astronomical amount of money, but I believe that we can meet a lot of those needs in service. Now, If you can recall back in August, some of the retired, or at least a retired teacher, called in and stated that they were willing to volunteer to do some tutoring to help out. We have not overlooked or looked at that option as not being viable. Again, I would like for us to maximize what we have in-house. And until we maximize the services we have in place, I will be hesitant to make any additional recommendations. I'm going to ask Dr. Carcamo to speak with the building principals to check with their teachers to find out how many students are actually using those services. Now, again, our most recent communication, we do have several students who are taking advantage of that after school or the end of that school day for any additional services at this point. And the last one I think I touched on earlier, they're asking, the Citizens Advisory Council is asking the building principals to use robocalls and email blasts to communicate through Genesis with the parents. I wholeheartedly support the email blast. The principals should be communicating with their parents. But as far as robocalls on a weekly basis, I would not be making that recommendation. Madam President, that concludes my response to the questions. I do have some additional information items of my own. I will be brief, but again, I think these information items are important. First and foremost, parents should have received, again, a robocall from the principals about progress reports. Progress reports became available today. And since everyone has a device, we're asking parents to use that device to go to Genesis, access the parent portal, and your child's progress report should be there. For those parents who do not have an access code, it's just a matter of calling the building principals and they will walk you through it and give you an access code. We want to take advantage of having technology available so we don't have to mail out these progress reports. You can go online and those progress reports should be there. Just another follow-up to what we've already stated. I hope the progress reports are going to be taken very seriously. The teachers should be informing you exactly where your child is at this point. And I spoke with Mr. Mills. We still have some attendance issues. Those attendance letters are still going out. So we're asking parents again, please make sure that your child is prepared for school on a regular basis. Also, you may recall last year, Mr. Ian Moran introduced the Transform South Jersey Heart and Soul Community Grant to the school district. And we have been partnering with the township, local churches and local organizations to make this a success. We had a meeting last Thursday. Ms. Kelly Thomas represented the board. Mrs. Karen Forrest, our grant writer, was present, as well as myself. I want to thank Mr. Moran and all of the community members who participated in that joint community effort to make that a success. We do have a need, and this is where I wanted to support one of the things that were discussed at that meeting. We have a need for more participation, particularly from the age group of between 15 to 35 years of age. We're going to be reaching out to the high school. Certainly we can get some assistance there for some of those young people who may need some community service credits. But I informed Mr. Moran that we will try to do everything we can to assist them in getting our alumni and other people involved, because this project is for the Winslow Township community. The school district, of course, has been involved, but we want to get as many people involved as possible. So at this point, if you know any members of that committee, you can call the school district if you know of anyone who's interested in participating, or any of those project members. So I just wanted to give a blast to the Heart and Soul Community Project Committee for doing an outstanding job. COVID-19 positive cases, even though we are not in session, the process is that the Camden County Department of Health will call the superintendent and give the superintendent information based on COVID-19 positive cases. As of today, in the past 3 weeks, we have 4 employees who've tested positive for COVID-19, and we have 7 school-aged children who have tested positive for COVID-19. 4 of those students are Winslow Township School District students. The other 3 live in Winslow Township, but they are not students in our district. Also, the superintendents get a weekly update on COVID-19 activity. South Jersey, or the southern part of the state, has moved from low to moderate range in COVID-19 positive cases as of the week ending October the 3rd. So we need to take a very close look at that, because I have to monitor that on a very close basis, and that will also have an impact on where we are come January. Last but not least, the Winslow Township Middle School has won the 2020 Sustainability Championship Award for scoring the most points in the middle school category. Thank you, but let me finish, because I'm still riding this horse. Okay. Let me finish. Because now let me back up. They won the 2020 Sustainability Championship Award for scoring the most points in the middle school category in the state of New Jersey. And they have also earned the silver certification. And that silver certification, not many schools in the state have silver certification. I would like to congratulate Ms. Stella Wanguma, the principal of the middle school, her staff, and all of her students for their creativity and their implementation of numerous projects over the years. I'd like to thank the operations committee, Mrs. Dredden, and the school board, Mrs. Pitts, for your support in providing us with resources, because you know we are currently building a state-of-the-art greenhouse at the middle school, which will give our students additional outside space and also give them an opportunity to observe and experience various plant life throughout the school year. The greenhouse was also a part of our entry for those additional points and awards, and I'm looking forward and excited about that greenhouse. But the middle school, as you know, have received national attention from many of the projects they've put in place there, and that's a tremendous accomplishment for Winslow Township School District. I also want you to know there's another caveat to this award, and that is all of the schools in the Winslow Township School District have received the Bronze Award for Sustainable New Jersey. So all of our schools have received certification. I want to thank all the principals and the teachers out there and their students for the numerous projects we have going on throughout the school district in Sustainable New Jersey. But a special congratulations to the middle school, because at this point they are #1 in middle school in the state of New Jersey. Mrs. Pitts, members of the board, that concludes my information items for this evening.
Dr. Potee?
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, I know you were questioning, I'm going back to the CAC question there. You were talking about question 13 that talked about parental outreach. From what I could see, just, because I am on social media, and what has been happening is there has been parents who are still struggling with, one, utilizing the technology and maneuvering through the platforms with their students. And some of these parents are also grandparents who are raising, or the ones that are the guardians for our students. And there's been a cry out for help. And the good thing is about Proud Parents of Winslow is that so many parents have chimed in and offered to help these individuals or help these parents who are struggling trying to do the day-to-day activities or help their students, throughout the process of schooling. So I don't know if they're looking for a parental outreach committee or program to put together. And I don't know, Ms. Martin, I don't know if there's something else you want to add to that to assist with that. But I think that's what they were talking about with the parental outreach, because there has been a lot of struggling parents, grandparents, trying to help with the remote learning process.
Well, let me respond to that before Mrs. Martin chime in. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a phone call away. I know if there are families, Mrs. McClendon, you stated that families that are struggling, we're just a phone call away. Pick up the phone, call your principal, call the teacher. We also have a number for our technology department. We have the people available. We have the services available. Just pick up the phone and call us. So if you would go back to the social media outlet that you are on and let those parents know that it's just a matter of picking up the phone and letting us know that there's a need so that we can assist you. I mean, we have staff available for that purpose, and we're not using those resources that are available through the school district. So just pick up the phone, and I know I've said that many times, so I'll ask the building principals again to reach out to the parents. If there's anyone that have any needs, to please call the school so that we can help you.
Dr. Poteet, I believe that addresses the issue or the concern that we have. I do know that there are parents out there that are struggling. They are grandparents. They are the caregivers. And
Yes.
I'm not sure in all cases, particularly if it could be grandparents or caregivers, if they necessarily have that permission. And the other thing is that sometimes I think people are very, very proud of themselves, and they're very concerned about the fact that they don't know how to use something. But knowing that the school district is there and that we have a technology department along with our building principals should aid in solving the problems. And it is nice to know that we have the services out there, and hopefully maybe in the next board meeting, we can find out how many parents of children are really utilizing the resources that we have there, because we do have them available. I do have one question in reference to the resources and the children being able to use them after school. And that is, if they are involved in sports and they have sports after school, is there a block of time that's available to those students in particular?
It's a matter of them just letting the teacher that they may be having difficulty. Let's say they're having some problems in English or mathematics. Just communicate with the teacher, let the teacher know, and the teacher's willing to work things out with them. Keep in mind, since we are virtual, that time is a little more flexible. Now, I'm not advocating that every teacher is going to work after hours, because I do know they have families, but it's just a matter of asking so that something can be worked out. And before we go further, Mrs. Martin, let me ask the board members to do me a favor, particularly those of you who are on the social media. If you would encourage those parents or grandparents, because keep in mind, if you don't ask for help, then we can't help you because there's no way for us to know. So you have to reach out. So if you're on those social media outlets, would you encourage those parents, grandparents, just call the school? I mean, we are here. We are a support service. We're not looking down on people or wanting people to feel bad because they don't know. I mean, we were all there at one point with technology. So would you please ask those parents to call the school or talk to the teacher? You have to feel comfortable with at least one of the teachers, somebody. the counselor, but you have to reach out to us. And I don't know if I can emphasize that even anymore, but until you reach out to us, there's no way for us to know that there's a need. So we're here, we want help. So board members, if you would encourage those parents on your social media outlets to call the school, talk to somebody so that we can provide that service that you may need. If we're here, we're available. It's not like people haven't been able to help you. It's just that if you haven't asked, we don't know that there's a need. Thank you.
Dr. Poteet? This is Ms. Redden.
Yes, Ms. Redden.
Yes, I wanted to comment on that. You're right about that. You have to reach out because I know myself as a parent, and I have been able to reach out to the teachers. They have you can get into, it's an app and it's called Class Dojo, and you can speak to your teachers on this. They can invite you. So while the children are in session in class, they can let the teacher know. The children can type in and let the teacher know that they need to speak to the parents. They will invite you on that app and you'll be able to talk to them. And then not just that, once you start talking to them, they will give you the phone number. They will call you after classes and they would discuss your children, you know, what's going on with them. As well, if you see something's not right, they will have you go on with your child and solve the problem. So they will help, but like you said, they got to reach out, but they can't reach out to the teacher. I think sometimes they don't realize that they can, even while their child is on the computer, to let them know so they can invite them in to be on a app for Class Dojo. And I call it, it's great.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Dretton, because I know and we all know that there are a lot of good teachers out there who are willing to extend themselves to help these young people. So again, without being redundant, please reach out, ask those parents to reach out, let us know where the needs are so that we can help.
Madam President?
Yes, Ms. Peterson?
I'm having difficulty, but I just want to comment on that. The pandemic has probably done a lot of
Ms. Peterson, could I just interrupt? Could I just interrupt, Ms. Peterson, because we're really having a difficult time hearing you. Is there anything technology-wise that can be done to enhance, because we really are having a problem hearing you?
Mrs. Peterson is in the meeting through my phone, which I have held up next to the Zoom. Because she got blocked out during each presentation.
Okay.
She's been continually participating for the record, but because of her trouble, she had contacted me by telephone, and so I have her on my speaker. I don't know where my mic is on my iPad, but I'll try and get her as close as I can.
Ms. Peterson, can you try getting off of speakerphone on your phone and talk into the phone and see if it comes through a little louder? That may help. Are you on speakerphone?
She's on my speakerphone.
Yes, okay.
Ms. Peterson, you want to try?
Well, what I was trying to say is that our parents been forced to adjust and during this pandemic in several ways, but it's the social, emotional issues that parents and caregivers are going through. So I know within the past couple of weeks, I have spoken to 6 or 7 parents. And I want to thank not only the teachers, but the principals, the assistant superintendent, and the superintendent for reaching out. When I called them and said what was going on, it was more that they were concerned about the technology and how to maneuver. We're all dealing with being the caregiver, also now helping with the homework assignments, making certain that their family is attempting to thrive during this unpredicted time. So I want to thank everyone, because if the teachers didn't come through, the parents didn't come through, we would be in worse shape. So I want to thank the district, but there are those teachers, principals, and I have to say the administration that embrace the 6 parents that I referred to, because I'm getting constant emails from them and calls. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Dr. Poteet, does that conclude your informational items?
Yes, it does.
Okay, therefore, I believe that there were just 2 questions here that, from the Citizen Advisory Committee that were directed to the board. The one, which was number 9, says, is there a possibility of parent participation on board committees like consulting? The Open Public Record Act, as we all know, certainly does allow for public participation when we have our regular board meetings. However, a committee meeting is not a board meeting. So therefore, public participation is not allowed with our board committee meetings. In addition to that, our board committee meetings very often have discussions around very confidential issues. That was number 9. Number 12 said from the Citizen Advisory Committee, we also discussed having more than one board member attend the Citizen Advisory Committee meetings. There has been precedence for this in the past, Citizen Advisory Committee groups. Well, ever since the Citizen Advisory Committee was put into operation, and that was January of 2012, up to 4 board members can always be a part of any of the CAC meetings. That was never a prohibition. So I'm just, perhaps the current 4 Citizen Advisory Committee members are not aware of that, but always board members are encouraged and also not prohibited from attending the Citizen Advisory Committee meetings. Okay, so that's 2, and just bear with me. There was 1 recommendation from the Citizen Advisory Committee, and it reads, the Citizen Advisory Committee respectfully recommends the following change to its guidelines and procedures, which were adapted in May.
Can you tell Dr. Poteet to check his email? I sent him
Hold
a
on,
text.
Dr. Carcamo. Dr. Carcamo, you're live.
I'm sorry.
No problem, Dr. Carcamo. You might want to mute.
I sure will.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Long. So continuing, the question from the Citizen Advisory indicates that our current procedures that for that committee that were adopted in 2019 states that there would be 9 members. And so the committee goes on to say that they would recommend that we amend the guidelines and procedures to allow for filling vacancies when they occur. What I can say with regards to any current vacancies, because just very briefly, this particular committee that was formed last year, as a result, of course, as board members know, we put out the application process. Everyone was entitled to apply. At that time last year, only 9 members from the community applied. When we had the interviews, only 8 showed up for the interviews. Out of that 8, 6 of those individuals were selected by the board to sit on the Citizen Advisory Committee. Unfortunately, 1 passed away, Mr. Barney Corrigan, and that left 5. And then 1 was appointed to the board. So currently there's only 4 members. And we are taking certainly your recommendation and advisement. We will be revising our guidelines and our procedures going forward. But for now, we are October going into November, and so we will not fill any vacancies at this point. So that concludes the information.
Yes, Madam President,
Yes,
Dr.
Dr. Poteet.
And let me first apologize for Dr. Carcamo because she was reaching out to me for something that was very important. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least ask the question that I forgot to ask you. When I was talking to you, to the board about the Sustainable New Jersey Awards, they are using pictures. If you can recall, some time ago, maybe the year before the COVID, we were all down at their recent banquet, and there were a number of board members who took a picture with the plaques.
Yes.
They cannot use those pictures unless you sign a consent form. So if you want them to use the picture, and I would encourage you that you do, because it was all board members and myself, all of the plaques were present. So we need you to sign a consent form in order for us to use that picture. So we'll send it out to you tomorrow morning. If you would sign it and get it back to us, because it's time sensitive. They're having a virtual banquet to honor the schools as well as the middle school, I think on the 28th. So we need to get that done as soon as possible. So that was what Dr. Carcamo was reminding me to make sure I mentioned it to all board members.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bottiz. And for those of us board members who were there last year, October of 2019, we all know who we are. And so therefore, just be sure to promptly return that consent form once we receive it.
Yeah, we'll send it out in the email tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Dr. Poteet. So therefore, if there are no more informational items, we can move on to our public comment.
Madam President, I have an informational item.
Yes, yes, Ms. McClain.
Well, I had the opportunity to attend the Urban Board's meeting this past Friday. And one of the things that came up that was very important that I wanted to stress to our parents, and I believe Dr. Poteet, there was a robocall out on the free or reduced lunch, the meals. Right now, of course, every student is receiving it regardless if they're eligible or not. However, we are asking that parents that are eligible for it to sign up by I think the 16th is the deadline. Is that correct, Dr. Poteet?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Because there is a strong possibility for parents who receive that pandemic card over the summertime for our students when they were out of school. It's a possibility that that card will come out again. And if you have not renewed your form, you will not receive it. So please, if you are eligible for the reduced or free lunch program, please get your form in, because if that card comes out, you want to get that blessing in your hand. So don't wait. Get the form in and get that card if it comes. So I just wanted to stress that because they asked that we mention that to get parents to fill out the forms.
Okay.
And that information is still on our website. We will keep it up there until the 16th. So if they need to download a copy of that information, if they have any questions, they can call the administration building. There's a number there. So thank you very much, because that is important and we need to get that information as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any further comments with regards to informational items? Board
Madam
members?
President, can I state something real quick?
Certainly, Mr. Shaw.
It's about the 2020 census.
Oh, yes.
Please, if you haven't filled out your census forms or done anything with the Census Bureau, please get it done by tomorrow, because if you don't, it's getting cut off tomorrow and it will affect our funding for the school district. So please, if you haven't done it, please get it done, because the president has cut it off and it will end tomorrow. It will be an extension till 6 a.m. on the 16th, I believe, online. But after that, the census is done, and that will determine our funding moving ahead for our school district and any other monies we can have as far as grants and other things. So I just
Thank
want
you,
to put
Mr.
that
Shaw.
real quick.
That was a very important heads up. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any more informational items to be shared at this time before we move into public comment portion? Okay, and again, to the public, we are moving into our public comment portion, and I must apologize for any of the mishaps here with regards to our technology, with regards to you being able to either hear us or see us. certainly going forward, we are going to make every attempt to improve our communication efforts. The Winslow Township Board of Education highly values the input of citizens in making important decisions that affect the children of our community. We also believe in the rights of citizens to observe our board meetings, to ensure that all citizens have the opportunity to attend school board meetings and offer comment, and to ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district. We ask that speakers and callers follow these guidelines for making public comments. The board president or board secretary will recognize those individuals who wish to make comment. Please respect the following procedures. 1, all members of the public attending school board meetings must treat each other and the board with respect. Number 2, please state your full name and address. Number 3, please limit your comments to 4 minutes. Number 4, please submit your questions to the Board of Education, whose address is 40 Cooper Poly Road, Atco, New Jersey, 08004. Include your name, address, and telephone number where you can be contacted. Your questions will be answered within a reasonable amount of time. And number 5, individuals offering citizen comment are not permitted to make personal attacks on any district employee, board member, other testifier, or member of the public. At this time, board members, I'm asking for a motion to open our meeting to public comment.
Blake. Motion, Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Thank you. And again, to the public, please understand that we are on delay when you call. And I would ask that you certainly, and I'm sure that Ms. Boyle will always ask that you silence any background noises that may interrupt and make it difficult for us to hear. So Ms. Boyle, do we have anyone in queue?
Okay. Good evening, callers. You joined the public comment section of the board meeting. Please state your name and address and make your public comment.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Christina Leonard. My address is 7 Dartmouth Drive in Atco.
All right, ma'am. Go ahead, caller. You can make your comment.
Hi, my comment tonight is actually for Mr. Morella. It's regarding the senior pictures. Is there an option of opening up somewhere in the school for the senior portraits? Maybe the auditorium, because that's nowhere, or the administration building. Lourdes doesn't have any appointments, and it's impossible to get through to customer service to make more appointments. I know there are other parents that are having the same issue. And yes, that was my first question. My second question is regarding the art club for the special education students in the high school. I wanted to know why that club is not continuing this year, but the mainstream art club is.
Okay, I will address both of those questions for you. I think Mr. Morella is no longer with us.
Okay.
I'll speak with Mr. Morella tomorrow and see if we can work out something for senior pictures. Mr. Morella did mention that to me some time ago. It wasn't recently, that he was trying to come up with some way of doing it. He may be further ahead with that, but if you would call Mr. Morella, I'm quite sure he can work that out. The same with the art club. I would look at it as being somewhat similar to what we already have in place. Let me find out through him and my assistant superintendent, because I know that was a special club we put in place for our special education students. So it's just a matter of, taking a look at it. Let me also say this, caller, whenever you have some issues, you don't have to wait until a board meeting, like 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. As soon as these kinds of things come up, pick up the phone, call the building principal, because these are some situations that we could have probably been able to address for you, some time ago. So again, it's a building level kind of thing that couldn't be resolved. So I will reach out to Mr. Morello first thing tomorrow morning and let him know what your concerns are, okay?
Dr. Potteet?
I've called the building twice about both of these issues, so I just wanted to make that known. Not just here, I've called the building.
Okay.
Dr.
All right.
Potteet?
Yes,
Dr.
hold on a
Potteet.
second, caller. Yes, Dr. Carcamo?
So Mr. Morella and I have been looking at what arrangements we can make for senior pictures. So we will have a proposal coming before the board for approval. So we have a plan. We just need to finalize that, and it is to have something done here in Winslow Township. So that should be finalized very soon. With regard to the art program, that art program was funded out of Title I reallocation money that we got the one time. So as of right now, plans were not made for this year because we were in the midst of a pandemic. So we still have to go back and look and see if there's additional funding that we can support the program with.
Okay.
I'm not sure why there's a difference between where does the funding come from for the other clubs?
So some of the clubs that were approved by the board were clubs that are paid through board funds. This club is money that we use through special funding. So for example, we get some money, and this was a one-time thing with the Title I reallocation funds. Monies that were not used by other districts, it was redistributed. We had to apply for it, write a plan, and decide how we would use the money. And that was done per year. In addition to that, there might be an opportunity for other funding sources that we have. If the money is available, then we can offer the extra programs. But those clubs that were approved were programs that were already designed for the schools, have been a part of the schools, and funding was already set aside for them.
Isn't that a bit of an issue that this is a club that hasn't already been set aside? That this has to be paid for separate funding?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Why isn't this club an every year type of thing? Why is it that last year was the first year for a club for special education students?
Well, last year was the first year that we had someone expressed an interest in doing the club. And actually, when we found out we had additional monies, I met with the curriculum director, Mrs. Lonnie, reached out to Mr. Morella, asked Mr. Morella to reach out to his teachers to find out if there was anyone who would be interested in doing such a club. And we had a response. Prior to that, there was not an interest.
There was no interest for any special education clubs before that?
Well, I didn't say that. We were talking about the art club. So what I'm sharing with you is the information and the interests that have been brought before to us. Prior to that, I have not had anyone come before to present to me to have after special clubs for special ed students.
And when you say anyone, students or teachers or staff?
Well, it would have to be covered by a staff member. So we would have to have a staff member who's interested, and it would have to be a program that we could support.
Because I know.
So excuse me, caller, I'm going to, because you have used your 4 minutes, so I'm going to just respectfully ask if you could continue this conversation with Dr. Carcamo later, because you have exhausted your 4 minutes and we do have others waiting in queue. Please.
Thank you, caller. Good evening. You've joined the public comment section of the board meeting, Winslow Township Board of Education meeting. If you would state your name and address and then proceed with your comment.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Britton. Address is 87 North Grove Street in Berlin, New Jersey, 08009. So I have more of a comment followed by a question. I did listen to the portion this evening, where Dr. Potteet answered some of the Citizen Advisory Committee's comments. And there was one in particular where there was a question about making changes to policy. And he has kind of respectfully declined making those changes. And I'd like to know why that's been declined, because I do feel that policies needed to be amended for this virtual environment. In particular, needs to be very clear on children's expectations for attendance, what is expected of them. While it is very nice to receive a letter, from our building principal stating those needs, I do think that the policies should be clearly reflecting of that. It should not just be a letter written by a principal and for our understanding to accept that. So I'd like the policy committee to really consider challenging that decline.
Caller caller, Dr. Poteet, I'll answer that. To the caller, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Ms. Britton, as chair of the policy committee, our policy committee will be meeting in about another week and a half, and we will take up any and all questions as it relates to taking a second look at behavior as it relates to this remote learning. And so that's an easy fix. I can tell you that we will take a look at that, but you should understand that probably much of this behavior still does fall under our code of conduct that we already have in place. But again, with this remote way of operating, it has brought up and brought out many other kinds of issues that perhaps we have not thought about and have not mentioned and have not had to deal with in the past. So yes, we will. I can tell you that we will take that under consideration, and our minutes from that meeting will reflect that.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm glad to hear that you will take that into consideration, and that is strictly my point. Virtual learning created new things that we didn't even expect. I know that even in my personal job, we've had to amend policies because of the virtual settings, and I just want to make sure that the board and the administration reflect that, and that it's in some form of writing coming from the administration, definitively. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Ms. Boyle, anyone?
Nobody in the queue at the moment, Madam President.
Okay, well, we'll just give them a few minutes to perhaps catch up with us or not. While we're waiting, board members, let me just say this. In this time of stress and high anxiety, many have stated that we should kind of just relax by looking at some funny movies. Very quickly, I just discovered Madagascar. Now, I know I'm behind on that, but that's the great, listen, I got to tell you. So if there's any sequel to it, just let me know, because I just fell in love with the penguins, right? I fell in love with the penguins. And I know I'm probably behind, folks, but that was just a great, and it really, really was an enjoyable picture. So kudos to Madagascar. I'm looking forward to more. It was great. So I highly recommend it.
Madam President, we have a caller on the line.
Okay, Ms. Boyle.
Okay. Good evening, caller. You've joined the public comment section of the Winslow Township Board meeting. If you would state your name and address and then make your comment.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Earlene Green. My address is 130 Norcross Road, Berlin, New Jersey, 08009. I just have a comment. I appreciate these meetings and the information. They're very informational. And I just want to give praise and thank you to all board members and Dr. Poteet for all that you do. I know it's a very strenuous time, and it takes a lot of effort and patience and understanding to get through all the demands that are out there during this very difficult time for the school district. I appreciate you all and all that you do every day. Thank you so very much. Do take care and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Caller,
Thank
you
you.
still have 3 minutes if you'd like to keep going.
I know you probably don't hear too many of any comments or thank yous or praise. I'm sure a lot of people and parents and have a lot of negative things or want answers and have a lot of demands. But it's a hard thing that we're all going through in this world. Never had to be here before. It's all new. We're learning all the time. We're trying to get through. We're trying to do it all, and we're doing it all together. And we all need to help and lean on each other and try to, have that open mind and give that thank you and praise every so often.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Have a good evening.
You
You
too.
too.
Very nice.
Ms. Boyle?
We're clear.
Okay, board members, I think we've given sufficient time. At this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn our public portion.
Motion, Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have just adjourned our public comment portion. Mr. Long, would there be an executive session this evening?
No, I don't believe we do. I do know I received a request from Mr. Shaw for you to explain the plot line to Madagascar to him.
I would be more than happy to, but Mr.
Yeah,
Shaw, you
executive
can call me
session.
tomorrow as we have our conversations, you and I'll explain the plot line to
I love you,
Madagascar.
Mr. Shaw. You know that. I love you.
But, okay, knowing that we have no executive session at this time, I'm calling for an adjournment of this school board meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion, Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.